he hates Jews, and he's the mayor of New York. That army failed on October 7th. Again, no sugarcoating that. It really doesn't matter what type of Jew you are. A street cleaner in Israel is more righteous than a chief rabbi outside of Israel.
When you have young Jews being shot in the street of our nation's capital, when you have the governor's mansion of a major state being firebombed, don't even ask how they got past security to get that close. You know that Jews are really in a next level of threat that we've really not experienced before. And I think that really we're going to see really what the value of having a state of Israel where we can go to will change the calculation.
Right. And again, to be clear, like I write this in every post that I talk about Aliyah, like this isn't coming from a place of judgment or, God forbid, condescending. Like I want my brothers and sisters to come home. Like I want them here. We need them. They need us. Right. But the reality is that, when I speak to my friends, they're very, very oblivious, right? They have this confirmation bias going on where they search for proofs that things will, things are not the same and it will be okay and whatever it is. To me, really the only thing that's left that has not happened yet is the full institutionalized antisemitism, like full-blown laws against Jews. But how far are we from that? I mean, look at Rashida Tlaib. I mean, she's straight up, 57, if not more, percent of the Democratic Party does not support the American-Israeli relationship. They want to stop funding, including the Iron Dome. You want to stop offensive weapons? We can debate that. The Iron Dome is saving Jews' lives, and they oppose that. I mean, so how far are we from anti-Semitism becoming institutionalized? Not very far.
And I think we're
not at all. And in fact, many organizations now are, when you see the associations, various academic associations and government associations are in fact banning people for being pro-Israel or for being Zionist. And really, there's no gap between being Jewish and loving Israel. So I think that you're absolutely right. We are starting to see that happening on a smaller level. It hasn't yet risen to the level of government nationwide, or thank God, on any serious level. I'm curious if you think that the election of Mandami could be that trigger point, that inflection point that will make the difference.
Again, this is just another, step on the ladder of reaching just, the point of no return, right? I mean, again, this guy is not he's not a closeted anti-Semite. Full-blown, a proud anti-Semite, a proud Islamist, socialist, anti-Semite. He doesn't hide it. His tweets are available to anyone to watch, anyone to see. Things that he said, his opinions on Israel are widely available. He's a full-blown anti-Semite. I mean, he hates Jews, and he's the mayor of New York. You couldn't make this stuff up. So I don't really know what my friends are waiting for. Again, I want to be very clear. Israel, we have our challenges, right? And when I talk about this and I post about this, one of the pushbacks I get is, because you're safe in Israel, you had October 7th. Fair point. I'm not diminishing that, but I also recognize that here we have an army dedicated to my safety. Now, that army failed on October 7th. Again, no sugarcoating that. But just because a mission failed once does not make it, a mission that doesn't exist. Meaning there's a mission of an army to protect me. Who's protecting Jews outside of Israel? Nobody. Nobody cares. You see, these terror supporting marches, and then you see a Jew with an Israeli flag, and who gets arrested? The Jew. And these guys are full blown, ISIS flags in the West, and nothing, right? So I don't know. If you're going to compare how many Jews were killed in Israel versus how many Jews were killed in America, you would conclude that Israel's less safe for Jews. But that's not the right way to look at it. The right way to look at it is, where are we headed? In Israel, we're building a beautiful future. In America, you don't have a future. And I'm sorry if that sounds harsh, but there's no data that would support an opinion that Jews are welcome in America. There just isn't. No matter what data you want to look at, it could not be any clearer. So when people say to me, it doesn't affect me, and stop exaggerating, and you're being hysterical and creating panic, America's not Germany, and here we're enlightened, and here, it's like, dude, do you hear yourself? Are you actually of the opinion that it happened in every single generation throughout history, but it won't happen here. That's your opinion? Like, do you realize how stupid you sound? And again, I sound like I'm angry, but I'm not angry. I just want my friends and my family and just to come home. What my friends in America are telling themselves, which is, what, we should all go to Israel? We have to stay here. We have to lobby on behalf of Jews in America. We have to make sure to maintain our relationship with America. Replace the word America with Egypt, right? Egypt, it's the world leading empire. We can't just leave where we're going to anger. We have to stay here. We have to convince the Egyptians to love the Jews. And we have to stay here because what? If we go to Israel, we're all going to be an easy target. All of these things are being repeated word for word today. That is what the Israelites told themselves. And then there's another narrative of the Jews who are, let's call it, more religious, who say, no, I'm very religious here in Lakewood or in Borough Park. If I go to Israel, I'm going to see Jews with tattoos. Oh my God, right? What do you think the spies told themselves in the desert? 10 of the biggest rabbis of the generation literally heard God say, go into Israel, and they said, no, we'll stay here. What did they tell themselves? I'll tell you what they told themselves. They said, I'm in the desert where I have food coming from the heavens. I have clouds of glory protecting me. I have a direct line of communication with God. I am very religious. If I go into Israel, I have to build an economy and an army. I'm going to stay here in the desert. And God's like, I think you're confused. Your job is not to be very religious in the desert. Your job is to go into Israel and see Israelis with tattoos. And that's okay, because the Talmud, not, rabbis, like literally black on white in the Talmud, explicitly says a Jew who lives outside of Israel is like a Jew worshiping idols. If you're a Jew outside of Israel, you're practicing, but you're not fulfilling the Torah. You're practicing for when you come home. It really doesn't matter what type of Jew you are. Rav Kanievsky, not a Zionist by any means, a Haredi, Torah giant, said a street cleaner in Israel is more righteous than a chief rabbi outside of Israel. So don't come at me with these like, oh, we're very religious. You sound like the Meraglim. You sound like the spies. Come home. We need you here and you need us here. And at this point, any justification to not come to Israel on a collective, meaning everybody, if there's an individual who has elderly parents or special needs kids and they need to stay for individual reasons, I get that. But I'm talking a collective. I'm talking about individuals. As a nation, the fact that there are millions of Jews outside of Israel is just a tragedy of historical proportions. And God is very, very, very upset at this. Everyone's familiar with the story of the man when there's a storm and he gets on the roof and he says, God will save me. And they say, all right, here's a boat. Get in the boat. He says, no, God will save me. And then he sends a helicopter. Get in the helicopter. He says, no, God will save me. And then he drowns and he goes to God. He says, I don't understand. I believed in you. And God said, what do you want from me? I sent you a boat. I sent you a helicopter. You didn't get on it, right? After 120 years, my friends outside of Israel are going to go up to God and say, God, I prayed for the ingathering of the exiles for thousands of years. We begged you to bring us home. Why didn't you bring us home? You know what God's going to say? I didn't bring you home. Are you nuts? I sent you elal.com. I sent you nefesh b'nefesh. I made Israel a paradise. That didn't work, so I sent you antisemitism. So you shouldn't have any, just crazy thoughts that maybe you are home in America. And even that didn't work. You didn't get on the plane. What do you want from me? That's what God's going to say. That's all I have to say on that topic.